Thank you, Julio. So, welcome everybody. I really am grateful for the opportunity to talk to you about this specific, um, very actually interesting topic that is so dear to my research, and I would like to actually share with you about also the practical implications of invisible health impairments in the workplace. I think, yeah, I have to present a little bit about myself first. So I'm a senior researcher at the CCDI Center, Competence Center for Diversity, Disability, and Inclusion at the University of St. Gallen. I work mainly on the topics related to inclusion, leadership, health impairments, mental health at work, to create the strategies for leaders and employees to have a more inclusive work environment. I've completed my PhD at HEC Lausanne in management. I've done a postdoc at ETH Zurich, and now it's been my fourth year at HSG. So happy to be here. And I first of all want to thank the sponsors that actually make everything possible for us to have a very informative and insightful week related to diversity and inclusion. Okay, so let's jump in to this interesting topic of ours about hide or speak. So today we're gonna see some definitions about what is exactly an invisible health impairment, what is disclosure, and we will then focus on two main perspectives: employees' perspective and leaders' perspective. And then I will come up with some practical implications and recommendations. We'll discuss the key takeaways, and we'll definitely have some time for your Q&As and also probably most importantly, your personal experiences related to this specific topic, such as invisible health impairment. So, before we start, I would just also like to say that this is going to be like a little bit interactive session. So I would ask you questions uh, in in the middle of the presentation, and I would ask Julio to present the questions, and then you can actually vote for what choice or what your guesses are. So um, so yeah, be cautious that I'm going to ask you questions, and it would be interesting to also know your perspective on different matters around this invisible health impairment topic. So some general introductions about numbers and what's health impairment mean. Globally, around 1.3 billion people live with chronic health impairments or disabilities, roughly 1 in 6 people. And this means that even in our like small group of ours, I don't know how many people actually join this session, probably 30, 40 people, we will have around 5 or 6 people with chronic health impairments. So this is a very prevalent and minority of group of people, and a disability condition means that a difficulty that occurs to a person's daily activities that interacts with the world around them, such as mental health conditions, autoimmune disorders, neurological differences that can impact their vision, movement, thinking, learning, communicating, hearing, mental state. So basically, it's such a broad term, disability or mental health impairment, or in general, health impairment. But most of the time, when we talk about health impairments, people would actually imagine such like images in their head. So, um, but but is it the case? Is it always the case that disability and health impairments comes with visible signals or notions? I would say no, not all the time. Invisible disabilities have even a broader spectrum of physical, sensory, and psychological conditions. Um, but it's interesting that even if we take these into account, the numbers actually become bigger and bigger, and then you could actually see that lots of people would have um, invisible disabilities and health impairments around us, and we wouldn't even notice them. So saying that, and this has been said, let's get to the poll one, I would like to also ask you guys, what do you think about the number or percentages of invisible disabilities? What percentage of disabilities are visible at first glance? I'm going to give you like probably 30 seconds. I think we're good. Seems that we have two competitive answers. Amazing. Okay. Very good. Actually, it's very close to what reality says. So many of your answers are around 28%, but I would say that the right and correct answer is 14%. So can you imagine it's only 14% of the disabilities that are visible. So over 85% are non-visible. And that's huge. So I would just put this down. But what does it mean? What does it mean for a person with invisible health impairment? Is it more complex? Is it less complex? How is it working for that person with an invisible health impairment to talk about their health impairment, to disclose? It's actually can be more challenging because they have to fight between this feeling of authenticity and access to accommodations while they would fear about the stigma and discrimination that they might face after the disclosure. These employees may fear actually to be seen as less capable, less productive, hired only to meet the diversity quotas. And in this session, we are going to talk about these challenges more deeply and the strategies that they would take to navigate the disclosure process, and basically how managers could foster an inclusive environment for them, a psychologically safe environment for them. So let's dive in. The employee's perspective. Second poll. So, how many people openly discuss their disability at work? How many people actually talk openly about their situation? Julio, could you actually put the second poll for us so that we actually start with your guesses and then we'll see what are the numbers basically? How are your guesses? Good. Amazing. I think the last poll actually made you a little bit conscious. Okay. Okay. So, very good. The correct answer is actually around 25%. So basically, less than 70 people, 75% actually they are invisible at work. Less than 25% talk openly about their invisible health impairments at work, which is kind of depressing a little bit. Let me be honest. So this is a reality in today's workplace, and this data is coming from a survey that we've conducted at a former center um, from a very large sample in Germany that is representative of employees in Germany. 15% of employees are experiencing a significant disability, and 86% of these disabilities in the workplace are non-visible. 75% of employees with non-visible disabilities have not fully disclosed at work, and only 43% of these employees actually, those who in, disclosed, some of them actually did not disclose to their main leaders, to their supervisors. So What is it? What's going on? Why it is so grave? So why it is difficult to talk about invisible health impairments? Is it related to the type of the disability? Is it related to contextual factors? Is it related to relational aspects? So let's see. We will come up with different levels of the factors. So we start with the individual factors. We will go then with the relational, and then afterwards some organizational and leadership factors. But yeah, let's focus for now on the personal factor. There might be some relevance about the type of the impairment that the person actually feel. So is it visible? Is it invisible? Is it about a certain type of a disability, like, for example, psychological impairment, physical impairment, sensory? Also, and we've seen that in the literature, severity of health impairment matters. So, how much it actually interferes with your everyday performance at work, and also if it's predictable or not, if it's episodic or not, if it's stable, if it gets worsened by time, and if it actually varies through time. Um, and then there is a matter of also authenticity and the matter of being your own, your true self at work. So these are the individual factors that actually a person could think when facing a disclosure dilemma, basically. And most of the time, what we've seen is that so some sort of disabilities are less stigmatized. For example, physical disabilities are mostly known as less stigmatized compared to the others. So what we've seen is that mostly people with physical disabilities that are less severe and less interfering with their job, they are more stable, and then these people might actually feel more authentic about themselves. They disclose more often. But what actually happens to the rest of the people with health impairments that are not visible, that are not physical, that are a little bit more severe and non-predictable? There are some other factors that come into play. So the social and relational factors, such as the stigma around a type of disability, and how capable that person would be in their job or position, a fear of discrimination, the trust that they can actually put into the leader and organization to provide them accommodations and flexibility at work, and also the nature of the job. And for example, in some positions, it's easier to provide accommodations, to provide these time and flexibility, but not necessarily in some other positions that are less flexible. And so every time a person would go through this disclosure problem, they would go to a cost benefit equation. So, what are the costs? What are the penalties? Am I going to be excluded? What are the benefits? Should I get some accommodations? What are the accommodations? What are the social backlashes that I might see? Is there any psychological relief that I might feel after disclosure? So this is kind of like a very complex, weighing this decision for a person in multiple levels, and we have to see that how draining that can be for a person that already goes through a severe health impairment. So let's see. Because we've known that there's a lot of reasons around health impairments and why people would disclose or would not disclose. And these are actually very common reasons for research, according to research about disclosure or non-disclosure, let's say. But what is the most common one? Could you answer that for me? Amazing. You're right. Good. Very good. So, fear of discrimination is the most common reason for non-disclosure at the workplace. Um, Basically, um, the unique challenge for people with stigmatized, especially with a stigmatized invisible disability, is to be discriminated, and the managing of the identity of the person with a stigmatized identity, especially when they are in the beginning of a career growth, career development. For example, applying for a promotion. This is going to be super challenging for a young person with, for example, a mental health disability. So as you can see, the decision to reveal or conceal is gonna be a challenging one. It can actually result in psychological distress or even more health problems. Just for you to know that concealability can be also dynamic. What do I mean by dynamic? Um, I wouldn't call pregnancy as a health impairment, but you can see that as as a part of like a symptom that can affect the body of a person, and you can see that it's in the starting point, it can be concealable, but after a while, basically everybody would understand what's going on. So. Um, it's the same as with some certain health impairments, and also for an invisible health impairment, even if a person is actually in total ease to talk about that health impairment, imagine that they would actually go through a new team meeting with another person added to the team, or like a little situation around an employee that just joined the team. So would that person would also disclose to that new person? So basically, it shows that this revealing, this disclosure, is kind of like a constant decision-making processes. So it's basically happening many times, even after the full disclosure occurred. That's why people actually come up with different strategies. And they can try to do signaling, normalizing, differentiating, and creating these identity management strategies, that tactiques that help them navigate the disclosure dilemma. So, what do they do? Some of them would conceal and cover whatever the symptom is, whatever the behaviors. Some might actually try to signal to some certain safe and people around them, colleagues, mainly sometimes leaders. And some of the people would actually try to disclose, but in various spectrum. So some would do fully disclosure or partial disclosure, and this also varies within the number of the people, also the roles that these people actually play in their surroundings. So what is interesting actually to us right now, and especially in our center, is the role of the disability type. So let me just be like shift gears right now to just have a little bit of a parenthesis or a focus on disability type for a second, and to just explain that what sort of disability types exist, and what sort of dilemmas can happen around different disability types. So, these are the different disability types that are listed in the literature: mental health, physical, and sensory disability. And as you know, mental health refers to a condition affecting the mental state, emotional well-being, and it's related to some sort of different symptoms around depression, anxiety, bipolar, post-traumatic stress disorders, and so on and so forth. But physical disabilities are a bit different, and they have different symptoms. They can affect mobility, dexterity, functioning, physical functioning. They can occur with pain and epilepsy, and so on and so forth. Sensory disabilities impact one's ability to receive, protect, and communicate information, such as visual impairments, hearing impairments. And as you can imagine, these different disability types, they might need different accommodations, such as for example, for mental health, they might need more support for their disabilities around around the situations, for example, if somebody would have an anxiety disorder, around situations that create these anxieties for them, but not necessarily a person with physical disability need the same accommodation, and also for the sensory disability. And most of the time, it's interesting that the accommodations for different types of disabilities with physical and sensory is most known and predictable compared to the mental health disabilities. And that's why we thought that maybe disclosure actually be more difficult for some of these disabilities than the others. And is this the case? And why this matters? So let's and why this matters is actually interesting, at least for me, because when I looked at the pension recipients in Switzerland in 2024, so these are the people who actually either got retired earlier or couldn't work anymore at their jobs. And you could see that here it's 52% of these people are affected by mental illnesses. And this is a majority of the reasons and that led to pension recipients. And if you would see also through the age spectrum, from the very young age to also to very old, this is the very green, dark green, mm, the interval, and you could see that mental illness remained dominant through the age spectrum, and this is really for me fascinating and also alarming. So what is going on with mental illnesses? And if these people would actually had the opportunity to disclose early in their career, would they actually left their job? We don't know. But this is something that I actually thought, and then we put some thought into this topic, and then we actually ran some research. And by these research, we actually ran two field studies, one in Switzerland and one in Germany, with different disability types. And you could see that this is a large number of people who've been invited to the studies, but we actually had to eliminate so many because they had multiple disabilities, and we wanted to really focus on one single disability type. And you could see that around 200 or 300 or 600 people, this is the demographic of the data that we had, and all of them are non-visible disabilities at this studies that I'm presenting for you, so that the disclosure actually makes sense for us. What you can see in the next slide is a result of the disclosure of different disability types, and also the stigma that these people actually feel depending on the disability types. So here, the green bars are mental health disabilities, and this is the probability of a person to disclose compared to the other people with sensory and with physical disabilities. And this slide is mostly related to the Swiss company. So I'm not presenting you the data on in Germany right now, but very similar results actually came out for German employees as well. Just for you to know, you can also put all the questions in chat, because we're going to have time for you to answer, for me to answer those questions. Just feel free to post whenever, whatever you would like to add or comment or any questions. So here you could see the disclosure rate is significantly lower for people with mental health disability. And this is a disclosure 0-1, meaning that if they disclose or not, and then we also ask those people to whom do you disclose, how many people. And we had these different ranges from just many, like from 0 to 7, nobody, to everybody, like my colleagues, my leaders, everybody. And you could see that also people with mental health disabilities, they disclose to fewer number of people around them as well. So what is it? What is going on exactly with mental health disabilities compared to the other type of disabilities? What we found is that people with mental health disabilities, they self-stigmatize themselves more than the others. So they actually blame themselves, and then they feel that this is something that they have to manage. They have to work around it, and they have to be probably stronger or a little bit more organized or a little bit more, how would you say, base more routine in their lives so that they can manage the difficulty of such an health impairment, which is probably creating more stress and creating more pressure on them. And so, as you can see, people with mental health and disabilities are more self-stigmatized than other non-visible health impairments. So basically, whenever somebody has a health impairment, invisible or visible, there is these like little stages for deciding to disclose or not. There is this if decision at all, would I like to disclose or not? Then there is this component of when, at the timing, if it's in the middle of the hiring procedure, if you are interviewing, if you are in the promotion stage, if everything is calm and now it's been like, I don't know, 5, 10 years after you're joining to the team, does that make sense to even disclose now? And also to whom? Who is important? Who should be the the reliable person, the safe person around me to start communicating. And these are the dimensions, these are the elements that a person would think about when facing a health impairment. So, Julio, could you also put the poll forward? Because this is about typical benefit of a disclosure. Because we've so far we talked about um, the dark side of and then the scary part of the disclosure. But is there any typical benefit? And just for you to know, it's a tricky question because it says what isn't a typical benefit. It's a negative question. Mhm. Yeah, good, good. Yes, you're right. Obviously, advancement within the company by disclosure of a health impairment is not really typical. So, when we talked in an interview and also with some surveys around what are the most common fear, and this is actually a survey that has been done over an online platform on Prolific, only looking at people with chronic health impairment and disabilities. And what they said is that the most common fear for them is the restricted career advancement. So as you can see here, um, it's actually here, but it's interesting to also see that the next fear, and this is maybe interesting to know, and it's a good transition for the next set of a slide, is leader reaction. So many of the people with the invisible health impairments, they fear the most about the reaction that they may see from the leaders. And let's see then what leaders actually take out of the disclosure dilemma of a person with disability. So first of all, how important are the following people? We asked the same set of the sample that who is the most important person that you would actually take into account when you're disclosing. And it's not like really surprising, obviously, that leaders are the most important agent in the disclosure dilemma, and also the colleagues, and their support matters the most. I mean, HR and also job coaches comes in the next level. And if I go back to this study that I also already showed you about these Swiss companies and self-stigmatization, I would like to also highlight the part of the study that we shift to see how the leaders actually change the self-stigmatization of people with mental health disability. What we've seen is that the role of the leader matters, but not necessarily in terms of lowering the self-stigmatization of people with mental health disabilities, but on the disclosure over the topic of mental health and mental illnesses. So interestingly, what we found in the Swiss sample and also in German sample is that inclusive leaders were creating a open environment that everybody would feel safe around any diversity matters, any health impairment matters. They actually increase the chance of disclosure and also increase the number of people that that a person with mental health disability can talk to in general. What we've seen is that, interestingly, this effect is non-existent for other type of disabilities. So basically, what we see is that mostly people with mental health disabilities are really benefiting from an inclusive leader that helps them to talk and be open about these diversity matters. And they can signal openness and foster an environment for authenticity and belongingness. So, what can a leader do? What is the leadership toolkit? And this is going to be the last part of my presentation. Some practical implications for leaders. They can create some psychological safety as a culture shift inside their organization. So, what is a psychological safe environment? It's an environment when everybody feels this shared belief that the team is safe to take risk, and people can speak up, talk about their ideas, question the common status quo, and bring up the concerns and do the mistakes without the fear of punishment. A leader can signal safety by being, first of all, vulnerable himself or herself, and this constant follow up through empathic and non-retaliation mode. So it's kind of like an inclusion lens that would be put on everyday practices. So it's kind of like an everyday action that shows respect and care to your employees and not necessarily like a policy change. Most precisely, I would say the toolkit would be around these 5 dimensions. So, first of all, a leader can normalize a conversation around health impairment and well-being or absences. And we can also think about policy clarity at the organization level about the accommodations, what sort of accommodations are present and can be given, and also a strong culture around confidentiality and clear processes should be placed. And also the role models. So leaders can also talk about their health impairment, can also talk about relatives or friends that they have that can suffer from the same, so that people with similar health impairments can see that this is not themselves, first of all, they are not alone. And also, there is this understanding around these health impairments. And most importantly, training managers, basically around mostly stigmatized, invisible disabilities, such as mental health and so on and so forth. So these are the toolkits that I thought, and I actually came up with some examples as as some concrete points that what a leader can say and basically should say or should not say in such cases. I would show you a couple of them. I will leave you to read some of them, and then um, you might actually. Laugh at some of these answers, but honestly, they came up within the interviews and some personal experiences of people with invisible health impairments. So I would say they are not that uncommon. So these are the typical answers of a leader in the face of disclosure of an anxiety disorder. And this can be, I would say, a recommendable, or we suggest that a reader can actually, uh, yeah, um, yeah, can have a very solution-oriented, empathic, and clear mindset about how to face a disclosure case in at the workplace. So this is another example for a person. I mean, the slides are gonna be yeah, ready after the presentation for you, so you can definitely also look at them later. I just put them for examples that you might want to go through at the end. Mm, and this is again another example about chronic back pain. And this has been actually one of my friends actually got these comments about, have you tried exercising more? Comment, which is, yeah, funny. Okay. So because I have also some additional slides to present for you, I would like to wrap up with the key messages and the recap. So the decision to disclose is deeply personal and complex for a person with invisible health impairments. It's not easy for a person to decide whether to talk about their health impairments, whether it is going to be mental, physical, or sensory. And it's even harder when they can already manage for a long time with no impact on their work. So the disclosure seems particularly hard for employees with mental health disabilities because it is stigmatized, because it's perceived as non-predictable, it's perceived as non-reliable, and leaders can make it safer. We've seen actually in our studies, in our surveys, that a psychologically safe environment provided by inclusive leaders can help and encourage people to disclose their health impairments, even it is a mental health disability. So, what we've shown also in our studies is that mental health disabled people benefit even more compared to the other disabilities from an inclusive environment. Um, and I would end with this quote that actually came up during a talk with a person with invisible disability. He said, "It is not like hide and seek, where the challenge is to remain hidden. On the contrary, in the disclosure process, the real challenge can be that nobody is looking for you." And that was to me a little bit eye-opening. And that's why we actually tried to play this role, meaning that to look for those people with invisible health impairment at the workplace. And that created these initiative at HSK actually that we started. And this is a tool that we created called Safe Space. And this is a basically research-driven, evidence-based decision-making tool that we put forward. And now it's been published and launched at University of St. Gallen, and it is related to people with health impairments and how they can talk about their disabilities, they can talk about their health issues, and receive feedback from their environment and from the leaders. And this tool actually works in different levels. They can talk about their self-perception. This tool actually collect answers from a person in four levels: individual level, leader level, team level, and organizational level. And based on the answers of this specific case, the tool actually gives recommendation around disclosure decision. So the final report would be around these four levels, and then it would recommend that depending on your self-perception, we recommend you to disclose. Depending on your leader, not really, and also depending on your organization perspective, probably it's safe to disclose. And the final report for the person should look like this. So, the more bluish color you get, basically, it's safer for you to talk openly about your health impairment at work. And what we see, for example, in this specific case, is that for the leader, it's not actually um, I mean, in the leader aspect, it's not really clear for the person about the relation that they have with the leader. So they can actually select to whom they can talk to. So if the team is ready but not the leader, maybe they can start with the disclosure processes within their very safe colleagues instead of going to the leader. So this is how the tool works. Mostly, it's related to the personal and individual factors. But what we thought is that the aggregated format of these data that comes out of the whole company can also be helpful for the organization. So obviously, everything is protected and anonymized, but then aggregated information can be communicated to the company, the organization. For example, later on, we're going to report to HSK, for example, how many people with some sort of disability exist, how many people disclose or not, and what are the main fears, what are the main challenges, and if, for example, the relation with their leaders is problematic, if so, then how could we come up with workshops, trainings, etc., and what sort of measures or organizational policies can be changed, or accommodations can be communicated to these people, so that they have easier processes for the disclosure dilemma. So that could be like an example of the final report around the invisible health impairment for the companies, but obviously everything is aggregated and anonymized. Yeah. So if you would like to have a test of the tool, I can actually leave the address of the tool, and then some the passcode for your test here in the chat, so that you can easily access to it and have a sense of how it works and how it feels for a person with invisible disability to navigate through the tool, obviously. And I would just like to thank my great collaborators, but mainly the initiators of this amazing project called Safe Space. And by this, I would like to open the floor for your comments, questions, discussion, and let's see what came out in the chat. Um, Julio, could you probably help me with the questions a little bit, because I can actually stop sharing for a second to see your questions.
Sure do. I have the first one here already.
Okay.
Silvia Hasler asks, kennen Sie Forschungsergebnisse zu Traumadynamiken in Unternehmen? Do you know results that have to do with the dynamics of trauma in businesses? And second, wie stehen Sie dazu, mit Potenzialblick auf psychische Störungen zu schauen? Stichwort Neurodiversity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also
I actually,
beachtet, how do you think awareness of the psychic problems? Yes, guess.
if I get the questions correctly, sorry. The thing is, we actually have some data coming out of some very big insurance company in Zurich. For those people who receive pensions, actually those who got out of their job, and they are sometimes partially compensated sometimes fully compensated. And we have different symptoms, different disorders. And we haven't done like a deep analysis on who with what exact disorder benefit more or less. But I have this data and I have to dig in more about different mental health disabilities, such as trauma, such as anxiety. I would invite that person to contact me in a month because we are writing that paper and sending it out for a special call, and I can give them more specific answer about each and every mental health issues around trauma or anxiety disorder. But we have that data anyways. Okay, so what was the second question?
The second question has to do with how management should handle that, okay? Like both in the case of people that like how to explain to them or make them sensible to the topic, then how to handle people that want to make their symptoms like more known in the company somehow, or the opposite, workers that or employees that do not want to it to be public.
So I would say this is like probably they might need some more specific answers, but I would say more general like answer around being empathic. And then first of all be solution oriented and first of all validate what's going on with the life of that person with the difficulties, ask questions if you see that they are open to discuss, and just be aware that they are the most knowledgeable around their health impairment. They know what's going on, they know when it's happening, they know um, the severity, the impact. They've lived with that health impairment for a long time before they start talking about it, believe me. And just be curious for a second and then try to be solution oriented and empathic. And also, what I actually see is that try to be vigilant and also ask follow-up questions. I know that some people would care about the privacy, and this is very, very true, especially around some stigmatized identity. But somebody that has trusted you and talked about that health impairment, you can definitely, yeah, be sympathetic and then come back with follow-up questions if they are doing okay at their job, if something that is bothering them and you've known it, you can ask follow-up questions around. So, for example, what was that meeting of you, and how did you feel, and was it okay for you? So these follow-up shows the care and respect to that person with this diverse, important health impairment. And yes.
Thank you very much. So next question would be, would you count host sensibility, high sensibility, like people that are more aware of sounds like that, to a kind of mental health disability?
Mm, okay, so we obviously there are ranges, and obviously the percentage that this impact their everyday work and everyday performance might change. It's also the case in treating people with different psychological disorders, that if it's not basically affecting the everyday life, it's not going to be counted as a disability. It depends on the percentage of relevance to their job and everyday functioning. But if it is the case, then it should be a matter of not necessarily HR. It should be a matter of everybody around them, especially the colleagues and leaders, to provide a place for them to be able to work and function as easy as possible. So, for example, those people with high sensibility around noise and I don't know, some people with lights, and especially number of people around them. They might need like a secure office, some good headphones, but most importantly, being able to communicate about this health impairment and if it's necessarily affecting their everyday functioning, then definitely get some accommodations. Yeah. What is the next question? Sorry.
Next one is beyond mere accessibility, how can a company intentionally foster a safe space for people with disabilities? And what cultural and procedural shifts are required within organizations and meeting practices?
Hmm. Hmm. This is a very good and very governance level question. I would say a culture shift, but how can you access that? I think because nowadays, especially, we are talking about diversity and inclusion, but a lots of backlashes and a lots of yeah, stories to be told. And I think organizations, I mean, right now there are lots of sponsors actually willing to work on this specific week on diversity and inclusion, which is amazing. But again, this shows and signals that diversity matters. So, how could you actually make it more prominent in the organization? Probably by communicating and creating role models. So I know that some good practices at bigger companies, international companies, to actually put more spotlight on people with different health impairments who are willing to disclose, and they are ambassadors basically of different diversity matters inside the organization. And if you, for example, in an organization know that it's safe around mental health disabilities, it's safe around any diversity matters to exist and then to actually function and to be promoted and then advance in your career, then as a person with a health impairment, even if it's a stigmatized identity, you would have a easier path to talk and then to navigate your working environment. Also, aside from a culture shift, I would say most importantly, training the mid managers, not necessarily even the CEOs or higher managers. Mid managers are the sole body of basically get the things done in big organizations. And if they are knowledgeable enough, if they are skillful in terms of communication and care and then healthy leadership, then um, the whole organization would benefit, I'd say. So investing on training the mid managers around topics of disclosure, around topics of healthy leadership, around topics of inclusion, around topics of a stigmatized identity at work would benefit the full organization as a whole. I
Thank you
think there
very
are
much.
more
That would
questions.
be it for the moment. We could have time for one more question, so people feel free. There is time still for one, possibly even two questions more. So if you are feeling questy, just ask for it. Ask away. Don't see anything coming. Maybe people are still typing. It's not like WhatsApp, right? You can see like is typing.
No.
Make it, make it a bit easier on this part, but I could see one more question coming. There's a not a bad chance. People tend to, like write stuff. Yeah, no. Looks like this is it. Oh no, there you go. There you go. Not a direct question, but can we access recording? I just answered that in the chat. Look, we
Oh, wait.
both the recording and the slides are going to be made available for you in the website in a week or maybe two, three, yeah, depending on how fast you go with the editing of the videos. Okay.
Can I also add this link? So this is a
Sure.
safer space tool. I would just put it in the chat for you to try out. And if you have any comments, any feedback on the tool, if it's working or it's not working for you, let me know. I would welcome any sort of feedback around health impairment disclosure. And yeah, hope that
Thank
we
you
have
very
a
much.
more inclusive and safe environment for everybody at work.
Nice. So I would say if no more questions show up, this is it. And thank you very much, Mashit, for the presentation. People, I would like to remember you that the fun still continues into the afternoon, with our next session being at 2 o'clock, inclusion and well-being in the home office with Florian Krause. And afterwards, at 4 o'clock, we have the gender diversity report, all right, which is sort of the highlight of the week. With that said, thank you very much again, Mashid, and I would like to wish you all a great lunchtime. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.